Hey, Crossview Church, we are excited. Thank you so much for watching this video where we're going to talk about moving inside. I'm Dan.
And I'm Chris.
And not only are we excited about moving inside, but also we are excited to model for you the new Crossview Church staff uniform. Not really. We didn't plan this. It just so happened we showed up at the church to make this video, and we were wearing the exact same thing.
Yeah, when I walked in the worship center to get here, my heart sunk as I realized I was dressed like an old man.
Stylish old man. Stylish old man. We want to talk about reopening. As you can see from behind us, we are getting ready to have our last worship service outdoors and come on inside. And we want to talk about all that's surrounded that. We're going to give some details, some umbrella information. So thank you so much. We ask you to watch this in its entirety because there's good information you're going to want to have before you show up September 13th to our worship services. They'll be back in our worship center. First, I just want to be honest. COVID has been tough. It's been hard. This pandemic has tested our patience. A lot of us are tired. We have decision fatigue. We have all the restriction fatigue. We're just really tired, and we can be on edge. And we want to just name that and say we get it. We know it's true. There's a lot of different opinions about what's going on with the pandemic and all the details about it. And I just want to encourage you that as a church, it's okay to have differing opinions and still be unified. Disagreement does not have to mean disunity. I don't want there to be division in Crossview Church. Chris doesn't want there to be division in Crossview Church because we love you guys. We love our church, and the enemy would love to divide us over things that are not going to matter down the road. And so we have to be wise. We have to keep our eye on the ball and stay unified. We can disagree on minor issues and still come together and love God, love others, and serve the world. That's our mission. So it's okay to have some disagreements on minor issues and be unified in the main things, and that's what we want to do. Our staff is trying to minister to everybody effectively in this situation, regardless of what they believe. And I think you're going to see that reflected in this, that we're trying to give options where we can. We understand we have 400 plus people who have a heart in this, and we love that you do, and we're trying to do the best we can with this. So with that, let's give grace and understanding. Let's give grace and understanding where we can. I want to talk about something that kind of comes up every time we kind of make another move in this reopening thing, and a topic keeps coming up, and I just want to address it. And the comment that comes up sometimes is that Crossview Church doesn't trust God because they're taking precautions. That's the comment that comes up, that Crossview Church doesn't trust God because they're taking these precautions. And I just want to address that and talk about that a minute. At Crossview Church, from the time we've opened our doors, we've sought to trust God. We have been in very difficult times where we know we can never give God enough honor and worship and glory for what he has done to get us to this place. And so our heart is to always be trusting in God. And when we take precautions, that doesn't mean we don't trust God. You can have biblical trust in God and still take precautions. In fact, I would argue that you should. Taking precautions and precautious actions against potential harm doesn't mean you don't trust God. Let me say that again. To take precaution and precautious actions against potential harm doesn't mean you don't trust God. That's just not a biblical statement. In Proverbs 22, verse 3, it says, "A wise person sees danger and takes cover, while the inexperienced run and are punished, or go forward and are punished." Jesus himself, when he was talking, he said, "Who among you would build a tower and not make sure you have the material to do it? Or who would go to war and not take counsel to make sure you can win?" Jesus was saying you have to look at your context and make decisions, wade through biblical counsel and outside counsel, and decide wisely. That's not lacking trust. That's just being wise. And so, though we're going to take precautions that you're going to see in this plan, it doesn't mean we don't trust God. It means we're not testing God. It means we're being wise about this. If taking precautions meant you don't trust God, if you walk that out, that could be some serious things. That means that if you take medication, you don't trust God. That means that if you have a bank account, a savings account, or a retirement account, you don't trust God. That means if you have a smoke detector in your house, you don't trust God. You see, you can take that to an end, and those decisions are honoring God, honoring actions, honoring to God, and they're not a lack of trust. In fact, to not do those things and not have those things is somewhat foolish and presumptuous. And so we are going to have precautions, but in the meantime, we also trust God with our hearts. And we're asking God for grace to continue to trust him. So please, just understand our hearts in this. And so with that, we want to dive into some other things. Where a mandate exists, we are going to honor that mandate as long as it doesn't violate our biblical conscience. So if a government mandate exists that doesn't violate our biblical conscience, we're going to follow that. The flip side of that is where there's flexibility, we're going to allow options because it's loving and kind to give options when we can, and we want to do that as well. So we're going to follow the laws when they're there, and we're going to give options where we can. Finally, the biggest thing I want you to remember is we're here to worship. We can't wait for you to come back on the 13th where we can all be in the same worship center worshiping God together. There are places and settings for you to express your dissatisfaction, your stresses with this, and everyone has. But I think we can all agree that worshiping God in a worship service is not the place for us to come and unload our dissatisfaction. A worship service is not the place for us to debate. It's not the place for us to have arguments. It's not the place for us to unleash all the stress of this. So let's be respectful of that. When we come together, we're here to worship God. We're doing the best we can with all this stuff. We're landing in a spot, but ultimately we're coming to worship God. And so please keep that in mind, that the precautions we have, there's 45 minutes for you in your week to come worship God together. Let's not ruin that precious time. So let's keep it together, keep our eye on the ball, and focus on worshiping God. With that, Chris is going to dive into the details of this, and then we will wrap up.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. So just a few logistical things. So first we're going to talk about services. So we are planning Sunday, September 13th, as you know, to move inside, and that will be at our normal 2 times. So 8:45 and 10:30 a.m. we'll have 2 services as we come inside. We're also adding a third option. We've kind of been doing some online things as we've been outside, but we're planning to begin streaming our services live. So 8:45 and 10:30 will both be streaming live, so you can tune in to either one of those if you land on a more cautious side and aren't comfortable coming into our worship center yet. You can also check that out afterwards. One of those services will be posted online later, so if you miss a Sunday morning, you can check it out that way. Some logistics about those services. So as Dan just shared, we're planning to comply with the governor's masking order that's in place right now. And so as we move inside, to begin with, both the 8:45 and 10:30 services will be masks mandatory. After that order expires, or is struck down, so it's set to expire on Monday, September 28th. So after that happens, as Dan shared, we want to provide some options. So after the order expires, our 8:45 service will continue to be a masks mandatory service. So if you're comfortable coming in person, but you still land cautiously and you want to be around other people who are masked, you can plan to come to that 8:45 service where you can be sure that people around you will be masked. The 10:30 service, on the other hand, will be a masks recommended service. So we're still recommending that you wear a mask at that service. We want to be in compliance with CDC guidelines for safety, but it's not masks mandated, just masks recommended for that 10:30 service. That being said, there's one caveat to those things. So at both our 8:45 and 10:30 service, we're going to ask you to please wear a mask while singing. So because of the way that this virus spreads, we want to take that precaution at both services and plan to wear a mask during the singing portion. We're planning at both services to social distance and limit our capacity in the worship center to 150 people. So as you come in here, you're going to see that some chairs have been removed. And then we're going to also ask that you sit 3 chairs apart from other family units so that we can have adequate social distancing. And since we're limiting that capacity and distancing in the worship center, we're going to have some overflow seating in the foyer. So there will be a few rows of chairs set up out there in case the worship center fills up. And we're also excited to welcome families inside at Crossview. So if you're a parent like I am, I know that you might be excited about being outside because your kids can be squirrely and they can make noise and you don't have to feel bad about that. Well, I just want to say, as we move inside, you don't have to feel bad about that either. So if you want to join us in the worship center as a parent with your kids, you are welcome to do that. We'd love to have you in here. That being said, I know as a parent that it can be really stressful if my kid starts making a lot of noise during a service. And while as a parent, when I hear a kid making noise, I just think to myself, man, I'm just glad that's not my kid. And it doesn't bother me at all. And I know that's the attitude of many in our congregation. I also recognize that it can be very, very stressful. So in the same place where we have that overflow seating out in the foyer, we're planning to have some tables set up for families. So those tables will have some paper on them and some crayons, kind of bringing that chalk experience inside. And so if you're more comfortable having a noisy and squirrely kid out in the foyer where you can watch the service on the TV and then hear the audio pumped in from the ceiling, that's a great option. So we're really excited to have families in here. So please, just because we're moving inside, families, you are more than welcome to attend. And not just welcome, we want you here. So either in the worship center or in the foyer, please plan to come even with your kids. Quickly then, I want to cover a few things about social distancing and safety. We have those two services at 8:45 and 10:30. Please don't come earlier than 15 minutes early to either one of those services so that we can make sure that we are prepared for both of them by sanitizing and having things set up. When you come in, there's going to be some hand sanitizing stations and masks available if you need those, so you can take advantage of those things. And when you move into the worship center or in overflow seating, as I said, please leave 3 chairs between family units. That covers that 6-foot social distancing recommendation. And as we've said outside, we're continuing to social distance personally. So please avoid handshakes and hugs and all those sorts of things. We're asking you to refrain from those. And finally, we're going to continue to rely on our digital bulletin, website, and email announcements for communication. We're not going to move back to paper bulletins. So make sure you're checking those things out. If you are a big note taker, you can bring your own notebook with a pen and paper. And I would just say this, make sure that you're watching your email for an important one coming up. We have 8:45 and 10:30 service, and we want to know numbers for those. So you're going to get an email in the coming days. It's not an RSVP. If you have to flip-flop, you can. But we just like to get an idea of what numbers are planning to attend what service. So please watch for that one and maybe ramp up your paying attention to the app and email and website for important information. So if you have any questions at all, feel free to contact the office, and we'd be more than happy to answer those for you.
Thanks, Chris. As we come together in our worship center on September 13th, this is so exciting. We're excited to get back into our building and do this again. We just did a sermon on Romans chapter 12, verse 10, and the main theme was outdo one another in showing honor. Let that be our motto as we come back in. Let's let it be our motto. In the midst of this pandemic, in the midst of all the different views, in the midst of the division that we see in our country, all the things happening, let's be different as Christ followers, and let's come in and outdo one another in showing honor. Regardless of where a person's view is or their opinion, I'm going to honor them. In fact, I'm going to compete to try to out-honor them versus anyone else. If that's our heart, we will please God. If that's our heart, we will come together in love. And so I'm excited as that we get to come back together, and let's walk this out in a way that God would be pleased and that we will feel love for one another. And we can do that if we outdo one another in showing honor. Thank you, Crossview Church. Thank you so much for watching this. We're excited. Can't wait to welcome you back in the worship center on Sunday, September 13th. Take care and God bless you. We love you.